Anoint the remainder of this service. Anoint me and anoint these words that are about to be spoken. In your name we pray. Amen. I'm telling you guys, what Greg and this worship team does is just, man, sometimes I think we take it for granted. We don't fully appreciate what it is that happens in here each and every week. I've sat through a lot of church in my life, a lot of good church, a lot of bad church. And such a thing exists. It does. And we're fortunate to have these guys because they lead us in such a way that we have good church. Amen? Man, you guys have Easter invites. And I'm going to ask the ushers. I've got some more invites up here on the front row. And as you go out, grab some more, okay? This is what I want our focus to be in terms of an Easter invite this week. We did the postcards. We've done all kinds of different things. Amen. We've done all kinds of different things, and this week I really want our focus to be the one. Okay? Each and every one of us has one in our life, and if you say, I don't have one in my life that I really want to see here at Easter, then I would challenge you that you should probably talk to God, because there is one in your life. All right? So I want our focus to not necessarily just be the masses this week, but I want it to be the one. Okay, and you may say, I've already given my invite to the one. Great, give them another one. All right, let them know that you really love them. Pray this week about the one. It's unbelievable what happens, and we talk about it here a lot because I believe firmly in leaving the 99 for the one. That's how we build the kingdom. God didn't set that out by accident. And when we all reach our one, imagine what happens, and then those ones reach their ones, and then those ones reach their ones, and all of a sudden, thousands upon thousands of people are being reached. It's incredible. So pray about the one. Like I said, the ushers are going to grab these cards off the front row after service. And so if you don't have one with you at home, take an extra one and really be praying about that this week. One announcement, Wednesday, March the 28th. So that's the Wednesday before Easter. We're going to meet here at 6 o'clock. Okay, we're just going to have a night of worship and prayer. We'll feed you guys. Okay, so don't worry about dinner. 6 is early, and so when we do that, we want to feed you guys. We just want to come together and worship and set an atmosphere and pray for what can happen at Easter. This is the Super Bowl of Christianity. All right, so we want to believe big things for it. We want to win. Okay, we don't want to go to the Super Bowl. We're Eagles. Isn't that right, dog? We don't want to just be there. Man, I'm excited about this series that we've been in. It's been a little bit of a teaching series, laying some foundation. And today I get to preach a little bit, and I'm excited about that because it's been pent up in me, man. I mean, I've been fighting back, like setting it all up, but I'm ready to go today. I'm excited about this word. And so week 1, we talked about fearing God and how that's the one healthy fear in our life, and what it really means is to stand in awe of God, to begin to understand Him better, to know who He really is in our lives. And then last week we talked about not fearing man, and the antidote to not fearing man is fearing God. Okay, we talked about how in Proverbs it sets out that fearing man is a snare. It sets a trap in our lives that will forever hold us down and hold us back. But the only way that you can avoid fearing man is to fear God, because you will fear one of the two, man or God. You've got to choose one. Which one will it be? And so this week, I want to talk to us from kind of the topic of fearing what we lack, fearing what we don't have. We all fear that, right? We all have these things in our life where we say, if I only had blank. I would do it, God, if I was capable. I would do it, God, if I could speak. I would do it, God, if I could sing. I'm telling you, y'all are lucky I can't sing. We would sing all service if I could sing. I mean, I would get up here and we would get with it. But we all have that blank in our life, right? That insecurity that separates us from God. I mean, sometimes we miss that, right? The insecurities in our life. The constant thing that we say, if only I would, actually creates a separation between us and God. I'm going to get to this point later, but I want to say it now. I don't know why. But our insecurity insults the Maker. Right. Our insecurity insults the one that made us. You see, because He didn't mess up. He didn't mess up when He made you. All right? He didn't mess up whenever He called you to something that maybe you didn't want to be called to, but we all get caught up on what we don't have, rather than celebrating the victory of what we do have. Right? I remember the very first cold case murder that I got. Okay, it was this murder that occurred when I was 7. All right? And it lands on my desk and I'm fired up, right? I'm like, I'm going to be on TV. Right? I'm going to be famous. I've got this cold case, man. Nobody has these. And then I started digging into it. And I became overwhelmed with what I didn't have in the case. I was 7, right? I couldn't go back and recreate the scene or recreate the moment or find all of the people that were in the murder book. I couldn't reach out and touch everybody. And it drove me nuts. Rather than looking at the great case that I had, I was consumed with what I didn't have. Now that's what lawyers do, right? That's what we're supposed to do if we're good lawyers, is understand what we don't have and understand what we do have. I think the greatest advice I was ever given as a young lawyer came from a mentor of mine, Paul Gantt. He said, let me summarize the law business for you. I said, yes, sir. He said, the law business is about who has who over a barrel. I said, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense, right? But man, everyday life becomes this constant checking the boxes, right? What do I have, what I don't have? What do I have, what I don't have? What do I have, what I don't have? But what happens is we don't leave our focus on what we have. It always shifts to what we don't have. That's where our insecurities come from. It's this constant point of comparison, this constant point of challenge. You ever prayed like a really bold prayer? Like, God, send me, use me. I know Trooper Mumi has in the back. I heard him speak about it. He's going to have to share that with you guys one day. But man, when you really say, God, send me, you better buckle up, right? Because inevitably He's going to send you into an environment in which your insecurities, the what you don't have, are going to outweigh the what you have. That's how it's going to feel when we look at it from our human perspective, when we look at it from the lens of everyday points of comparison. You know, Moses, man, it's just a great story. We hit on some of this a few weeks ago, but I want to dive deeper into this story of Moses. We're going to pick up in Exodus chapter 3. I'm going to read a little, talk a little, read a little, talk a little, jump around, read a little, talk a little, jump back, talk a little more. It's going to be a great sermon, isn't it? Y'all can feel it, right? You're excited. Now, we've got to understand a little bit of context, and this is Moses in the burning bush, right? This is like old school famous biblical stuff. And we talked about it a few weeks ago, but we have to understand where Moses is in this moment. You see, Moses has committed this murder and he has left, okay? He has gone into the wilderness and lived for 40 years, okay? He's living in insecurity. He's living in the what I don't have. God, I had this great life and I jumped the gun on what I was called to. I committed a murder and I had to leave. I'm out here all alone. Picking it up in chapter 3, verse 1, it says, now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. I mean, Moses is working for his father-in-law, guys. Like, that is not what any of us aspire to if we're just being real honest. I mean, working for the father-in-law is not what we want to be doing necessarily. If anyone works for their father-in-law here, I bet I would get a big amen. It said the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There an angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see the strange sight. That is not what I would have thought, but good for Moses. Why the bush does not burn up. I want to stop here, okay? So what we're talking about here is this series of fear less. And I want us to spend less time fearing what we don't have. And our fears of what we don't have, our insecurities come from that fear of man that we talked about last week. And we know the antidote to fearing man is fearing God. All right? And fearing God means to understand Him, to stand in awe of Him. And so God has this bush lit on fire. But notice it's at the far side of the wilderness. Okay, that leads me to believe that Moses is alone. And sometimes in our aloneness, when we feel lonely, is when our insecurities attack us the most. But sometimes God's got to get us alone before He can speak to us. I hate being alone, guys. I am not a loner. There is nothing about me that is a loner. I had a big step in my life about 3 weeks ago. I went to the movies by myself. I mean, that was like monumental in my life. You can't imagine how big of a deal this was, all right? I don't do things by myself. But there was a peace to it, right? I was like, oh my gosh. I could turn my phone off and like my kids weren't there. Nobody was there to interrupt me. I was thinking more clearly. I wasn't even really watching the movie that much. I was thinking more clearly in the moment of being alone. But alone brings about our insecurities. Alone brings about what we lack. Alone brings about what we don't have. When we're alone, so often we feel our most insecure. But sometimes God's got to get you alone so you can hear Him and not the chatter of the world. The world's full of chatter. It's full of conflict. It's full of things that will constantly distract you. If you're living a life of fear, if you're fearing what you don't have, if you're living a life of insecurity, I want to challenge you. Make some time to be alone so that He can speak. You say, well, what do you want to do? I want to give you some really practical tips here. Okay? Just things that I've learned over years of my spiritual life. You say, well, what do I do when I'm alone? Pray. Well, how do I pray? We're going to talk about this more in detail later, but I want us to really understand this, man. God is real, and He is here. Okay? When you pray, you just talk. Okay, a lot of people say, I don't know how to pray. What do I pray? I mean, I don't know all these fancy logical words, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to do. Do I talk loud? Do I talk quiet? Do I have to stay out loud? Or can I pray silently? Do I have to open my eyes? Do I have to close my eyes? Do I have to stand up? Do I have to kneel? Like, I don't know! You know how I pray? Like this. God, I don't get it. I don't understand. God, I need help. I said this to our worship team last night. You know what help means when you're rich? Help. You know what help means when you're poor? Help. You know what help means when you have a perfect marriage? Help. You know what help means when you're in a broken marriage? Help. You know what help means when you're struggling with raising your kids? Help. When's the last time you just got alone and said, God, I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of being insecure. I'm tired of being caught up in what I don't have. Speak to me. So pray. Number 2, open the Word. Read the stories. It's full of people that were insecure that God took and He used them. It's unbelievable. Last really practical point, we're going to move on, but get a pen. Keep a pen with you. Okay, because when God speaks, you want to write it down. There are treasures, man. You'll be 3 years later and you will be back in the Word or back in your journal or back in whatever you keep. And you're going to read something that He spoke to you that you didn't need in that. Amen? Spend some time alone with God. Find some time alone with Him. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses! Moses! This is really, really important. There are only 10 times in the Bible that God uses someone's name twice. And all 10 times we see the person that God calls their name twice to elevated, to be used for something great. Okay? Whenever you're constantly consumed with the fear of what you don't have and you're spending that alone time with God and He begins to speak to you, there is something powerful about what He speaks to you twice. There's something really, really powerful and important about what He speaks to you in repetition. Man, I didn't want to necessarily start this church. That's probably a really shameful thing to say to all you guys, I know. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of failure and snakes. We talked about that, right? And it feels like starting a church as, oh, this old building's definitely got some snakes in it somewhere. I was in the basement last week taking chairs out, and I had like 4 flashlights on because I knew there was a snake in there. I didn't see it, but there was one in there. I'm telling you, when God speaks to you through repetition, pay attention. Right? And I want to promise you this. It's in the moment of repetition that we've said this earlier. He's calling you to step. He's calling you to move in a place where you're going to feel insecure. What are you going to look at? What you don't have or what you do have? Which one? We've got to choose. Moses said, "Here I am." I love that. Like God didn't know. Right? He just called you by name, but hey, I'm right here. God says, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." At this, Moses hid his face. Why? Because he was afraid to look at God. In this moment, I can just imagine Moses is out in the wilderness taking care of his father-in-law's stuff, and he's all alone, and he's by himself, and he's thinking, God, I had a life full of destiny, a life full of purpose, and yet here I am. God, I had all of these things, but now I don't. Look at me now. It doesn't make sense where I am. It doesn't make sense why I'm here. What's going on? In the bush, and he goes over, and it's like, Moses, Moses. He's like, yes, I'm here. Right? And God starts to instruct him. He says, take off your sandals. The place where you're standing is holy. God is speaking instruction into his life. And it's in that moment that Moses feels absolute insecurity. I can just imagine Moses saying, hiding his face from God, saying, God, don't you remember what I screwed up? Don't you remember how I failed? Don't you remember how I thought you were calling me last time and you weren't? Don't you remember that I murdered somebody? Don't you remember that I now just take care of my father-in-law's flock? Like, I'm not anyone great, God. I'm scared to even look at you. I'm scared to acknowledge you because I know what I don't have, God. I know what I lack. When God starts to instruct you, the enemy will always begin to speak to you. When God starts telling you what to do, the enemy will always step up his game. When God is pouring into your life and he's calling you to step out, and he's calling you to move, and he's calling you to do, the enemy will always scream louder. Which voice? Which voice? Talked about it last week. You're going to fear man, you're going to fear God. Which one are you going to listen to? Which one are you going to hear? The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Fantastic. Now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Now this is an important point that I want us to understand. God hears you. He's saying to Moses, I hear the cry of my people. I see the oppression that they're experiencing. I know what they lack. I hear the cries for help. God hears you. He hears you when you're alone and you're saying, God, I know what I don't have, and I see the list, and I see the insecurity, and I feel all of it. He's saying, I know. I hear you. I'm going to send someone to fix it. I'm going to send someone to take care of it. I love Moses' response here. But Moses said to God, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Moses gets some criticism for this response. Man, who am I? And it's easy to preach, well, he should know better. And we're going to get to that part. Okay, but I don't believe that Moses was saying that God wasn't capable. I believe Moses is saying, God, why would you move through me? Man, I've said that 1,000 times over. A lot of people don't know, they don't understand. We didn't start this church in this short process. It took years. And I would say, God, why would you move through me? Why would you come through? God, I didn't go to seminary. God, I don't have all of the experience. God, why would you choose for us to do it here where we're going to be criticized and we're going to, God, why would you, not that you aren't capable, God, I know what you can do, but why me? Why not go use someone else? Why not go use another person? See, our insecurities aren't always that we don't believe in God or that we don't believe God is capable. Often our insecurity is that we say, God, you can do that, but why would you use me? And that's the crazy thing about the love of our Father is He always uses people to pursue His purpose. Broken, beat up, disqualified, unfit, messed up, sinful creatures, and He takes us and He qualifies us and He pours His life into and He breathes into us and He loves us and He gives us grace and purpose and wisdom that we don't deserve, that we can't have on our own. God, who am I that you would choose me? It's not that He didn't believe that God was enough. Instead, He's asking, why would you use me, God? I'm going to skip over to chapter 4. We're going to pick up at verse 10. Moses is still wrestling with God. He's still having this conversation. And in the midst of all of this, Moses is saying, well, God, how's this going to work? And God gives him 3 signs that are going to prove to the people that God really had sent Moses. One involves a snake, so we're not going to read about it because they get scared. And Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. Moses is comparing his calling to someone else's in this moment. Moses is saying, there are people that can speak better than me. They're more eloquent than me. They're more qualified than me. They're more capable than I am. He said, God, I don't have all of these things, and I'm afraid because I know what I don't have. He's comparing himself to someone else. If I woke up every single day, sometimes I do this if I'm being honest, okay, but I don't do it every day. If I woke up every single day and compared everything I preached to Billy Graham and Stephen Furtick and Craig Rochelle, I would crawl in a hole and never come back out. Don't compare your call to someone else's ability. We do it all day, every day. Myself included. God calls us to something and we say, yeah, I know you're capable, God, but you should use someone else because they're better at that than me. I think we live in this myth that when God calls us, He absolutely equips us. But we live in this myth that says when God calls us, it means He will only use our strengths. No. Oftentimes when God calls us, He's going to use our weakness to elevate so that He receives the glory, so that everyone knows, yeah, I sent you. Moses didn't get it. He didn't need a staff that turned into a snake. He didn't need all of these great signs. You see, because whenever Moses would become this great leader that we all know he becomes, where he leads God's people out of bondage and he leads them through the Red Sea and he does all of these great things, it was the same beat up old Moses that was out here in the far side of the wilderness. But God turned him into a great leader, and it was so obvious to everyone that God was moving in his life. Sometimes it's in our moments, in our greatest weaknesses that God uses to elevate us so that everyone knows and can see that it is Him working in and through us. The Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? Moses said, man, I can't speak. I'm not eloquent. God says, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. God said, Moses, would you shut your mouth? Are you forgetting who made all this? Are you forgetting who created all of this? Are you forgetting who put all of this into motion? Are you forgetting who gave you the ability to speak? Are you forgetting who gave you the words? Are you forgetting that I'm in charge? That I'm in control. You see, Moses, you're so worried about fearing what you don't have that you're forgetting to stand in awe of me. You're so worried about fearing your insecurities and what you're not capable of that you're forgetting to understand who I am.
Yeah.
It's important that we understand that. I'm going to begin to close if the worship team can come back. I'm going to jump back to chapter 3, picking up in verse 13. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, this might be my favorite line in the whole Bible. I am who I am. God says to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation. God says, Moses, I know what you're not capable of. I made you. What you're forgetting, Moses, is that I am who I am. You're not standing in awe of the I am. See, if you trace this back, whenever he says, who are you? He says, I am. Tell him that the Lord has sent you. The God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. It goes back to 4 Hebrew consonants. YHWH, which we would say in Arkansas is Yahweh. And there's 4 things that I want us to understand about what God is saying here. What Yahweh means. God's saying to Moses, I am who I am. I am Yahweh. I am the Lord. What God is saying is, I'm not dependent upon anyone or anything. God's saying, I'm the creator and the sustainer of all. God's saying, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. God's saying, I'm infinite and eternal. God's saying, I am who I am. When they ask you, who sent you? You say, I am sent me. The creator and sustainer of all things. The one that is infinite. The one that never changes. The one that is always present and always available. Tell them, I am sent you. You see, we all have this blank in our life that makes up our big insecurity. For Moses, it was, I can't speak. For some of us, it's, I can't keep a good relationship. I can't raise my kids right. I can't make friends well enough. I can't put myself together like the rest of the world. And what God's saying to you is, it doesn't matter. Because I am has called you. Because I am has sent you. Because Yahweh is always here. Always available. We forget it. God's just, He won't let me move on from it. And I don't know why. I don't know why. We have to understand the real Jesus. We have to understand that He really is present. I could probably find out how you view Jesus if I asked you to pray right now. Do you talk to Him like He's sitting next to you? Like He really does care about you? Like He knows everything that you're incapable of, but He is the I am? Do you see Him for who He truly is? The one that says, I hear the cry of my people. I see the pain and the oppression and the suffering. You see, I get it. I know who you are. I made you. You don't have to worry about what you're not capable of. Because I am. When's the last time you just got alone to let Him show you the I am? To begin to understand Yahweh is the creator, the sustainer of all things, that He is infinite and eternal, that He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is the I am. We can just bow our heads and close our eyes all across this place. If there's anyone in this room that would say, I don't know the real Jesus, but I want to. I want to enter into a relationship with Him. I want my insecurity to be replaced by the I am, by Yahweh. If you would just slip up your hand. I'm not going to embarrass you. We just want to say a prayer. We can all just say this together. Say, Dear Jesus, we thank you for dying on the cross for our sins. We acknowledge that you are our Savior. We ask that you would cleanse us and make us whole. It's in your name we pray. With every head bowed and eyes still closed, if there's anyone in this room that would say, I'm fearing what I don't have, but I want to stand in awe of the I am. I'm struggling with insecurity, Jacob, but I know that God has a plan and a purpose for me. I've just got to begin to better understand who He really is. If you would just slip up your hand, I just want to pray. Thank you. Heavenly Father, man, we just stand humbly in your presence. We acknowledge that you are who you say you are, that you are the great I am. That you are the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords, that you are always, that your love is infinite, that you are not dependent on anyone or anything else, that you are the one that makes us whole, that brings us to new life, that makes us a new creation, God, that it's your plan and your purpose that is set out before us. God, let us hear your voice and not the voice of the enemy. Let us begin to understand that it's you that's calling us forward, that it's you that makes us whole and complete, God, that our insecurities are no match for Yahweh. Man, we love you, we praise you, we lift you up, and we magnify you for who you are, for what you've done, what you're doing. And God, what we know and believe and boldly proclaim that you will continue to do. It's in your precious, powerful, most holy name we pray. You would just stand. We're going to worship just one more time.
There is a river whose streams make glad the city of our God. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of our God, and I will rejoice, and be glad. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice, and be glad. Oh, there's a river.
Wash my sins away. I will rejoice.
chose you. And when you begin to take hold of that and ownership of the fact that you are chosen, it changes everything. Remember, Easter invites they're going to hand out on your way out. Be praying about the one. The one that you just say, God, I'm sold out. I'm going to pray every day that this person comes to church with me this Easter. I love you guys. They're going to keep singing. I'm going to ask them to sing that again, but y'all are free to leave. Love you guys. Have a great week. Invite somebody to be back.